long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a great adventure took place.
Talking Bird, a special edition.
Hello, and welcome to Talking Bird, the special edition, episode 2.
That's right.
I was going to say, I was going to put a tag on it, episode 2, a taste for murder. But I can't think I couldn't think of anything. I
know. I was thinking earlier about whether we should have a tagline for this podcast or anything. The only thing I could come up with was a 100% guarantee that we will never eat on mic.
Yes,
but that's not really snappy or at all related to what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, when I was editing the last show, I came across this. They had to put a compressor on it when I did my Jar Jar impersonation because it peaked out so loud on the thing. It was just I was I'm not going to do that anymore because I think I might scare our listeners. But this time I will remember to introduce myself, and I'm Robert Zachary, and
John Llewellyn
is the co-host.
Yep.
And happy May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
I know, it's kind of, I felt like I saw that was coming up, and I thought we should record that day. And I was like,
oh, was it?
Yeah, that's why.
I wondered if that was intentional.
Well, I have a busy week, but I was just we'll do it. But even that being said, this might not get up till the 5th. So if you had a good 4th, I hope you did. I hope you went and got all your cheap memorabilia, because all the online retailers I got all these emails May the 4th be with you. We've got great deals on Star Wars stuff. And I went to one place, and it was kids pajamas, ebooks for kids. It was just there really wasn't. Yeah. There's really not. I mean, I don't need anything, so I guess that's good. I mean, there's some video games. I'm kind of hankering. That's a whole nother show, but I'm kind of hankering for a Star Wars video game. But there's been a real.
There's one that's either just coming out or will come out soon, isn't there?
Well, yeah, Battlefront, which is basically like Call of Duty, but for Star Wars. That it doesn't come out until November. So it's kind of yeah, and that's one of those games that without getting too much into it, is people are really looking forward to it, because the last two were one whole console generation, 2 whole console generations back. So it's there hasn't really, there was only 2 Star Wars games on the last one. Was called the not the Force Awakens. Oh, now I'm blanking.
Force Unleashed.
The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, which are actually technically, they were kind of canon. They're non-canon. What if type thing, what if Darth Vader had an apprentice? Right. They had all these weird add-ons where you could literally fight Luke to the death. It was kind of depressing. I saw I didn't want to pay for them. There's one where you end up at the end of it, you have to kill Han Solo and Chewbacca.
Oh,
and I'm
is that the one? I know there was a game where in the beginning you get to pick whether you want to be a Jedi or a Sith Lord or whatever, and I guess if you pick the Sith Lord, then you end up having to kill all the good people.
There's a couple of them. I mean, that was a thing. It's there's that one that's set thousands of years before the movies, which is Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR. I mean, right. And it works on a morality system, so it's this continuum It's like,
maybe that's what I was thinking of.
The worse you are, and then at the end you come like, do you want to save this person or kill this person? And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those games kind of have those. I think the Jedi Knight, which was a first-person game, had a thing at the end you could go to the dark side. It's usually like the last level. It's like you play, and then you decide at the end and you get a different ending.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did a little research on May the 4th because I was like, growing up a Star Wars fan, I don't remember hearing this. Because Star Wars came out on...
Yeah, no. It feels like it's relatively recent, I
It's
think.
actually only like the 4th year it's been done, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's like... Because, I thought, well, if I was going to think about an appropriate Star Wars holiday, I would think it would be like a May 19th, which is, I think, when the first one... It was May 16th or 19th. The first
May
one.
30th, I thought.
Oh, maybe.
No, maybe it was before that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe. I know it definitely wasn't May the 4th. But I guess they just did it for the rhyming scheme.
The pun.
Here's the funny thing I just read before I got on mic, that it's not even it wasn't even something Lucasfilm came up with.
No.
It's like a fan-driven thing. And it's kind of like, I mean, that's good, but it's kind of hilarious how quickly it got co-opted.
I was going to say, they certainly haven't refrained from jumping onto it, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we could sell a few more things, and
and especially now that there are movies coming out again. I mean, yes. you were saying that you didn't see very many good deals on Amazon, but I've seen a bunch of new things that are being sold. Right? It's become marketing again, right? So one of our friends pointed us towards some deal at the Disney store where you could get a Stormtrooper watch today. And then on Twitter, I got a promoted tweet, which I normally ignore, except in this case, it gave me something to talk about, which was Uggs has apparently joined up with Star Wars. So they're Star Wars branded Uggs now. That are all black because of Darth Vader. And the tagline is really odd. It says, "The path to the dark side just got a whole lot easier with the comfort of Uggs." But like the whole point of those movies is that that's what you're not supposed to do. Like you're not supposed to go to the dark side.
The idea of Darth Vader at the mall with black Uggs and yoga pants, getting a Wetzel's pretzel.
Yeah. And they have boots and they have like loafers. I don't know enough about Uggs. I just thought they were those like fur-lined boots or whatever, fake fur-lined boots. But yeah, so they have boots and like Docksiders and stuff. Is really, but like the tagline again, but we're not supposed to go to the dark side. So does that mean we're not supposed to buy these? What is it? It's the message.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's like I keep coming back to, because, and it's not even on the outline, but I was thinking about this. That it's like the way the quote morality of like the Star Wars characters have kind of, when I was a kid, right back in the day, like the original version of Star Wars, like first Star Wars, before there was ever a sequel. It was always sold to you as, these are, the Empire's analog for, the Nazis or totalitarian regimes of the past.
Well, they're called stormtroopers.
Right. I mean, literally, it's like,
it's not that hidden.
Yeah. And then the ending evokes, the big throne room. Everybody is pointed out to the Triumph of the Will by Leni Riefenstahl. There was like, she was a great Nazi propaganda. Great by meaning large, not by that I enjoy her.
Famous
Infamous. Nazi film propagandist. Propagandist, yeah. And it's kind of like, it's evoked now. It's like now that they've kind of gone back to this idea that like, they keep re-emphasizing different things. So now Star Wars, from being like, oh, it's the good guys versus the bad guys. No, it's the life, the fall, and the redemption of Darth Vader, which is kind of like, that's the new thing. Well, I don't even know what they're going to focus in on now, but in the previous,
this is jumping ahead or around or whatever, but my understanding is that the episode 7, 8, and 9, the Star Wars films that are going to have the episode numbers on them, that's going to be the quote unquote Skywalker saga. And then the standalone films are just going to be about other stuff. So yeah, I think even once we get to like episode 9, it will still be Skywalker related in some form or fashion.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like that's the center. But it gets to like watching these Clone Wars shows, and which I have to say I'm not a huge fan of them. I just can't really get into them. They don't have the same feel for me, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, I should say that there are some ones in like the 5th season, like near the end, that actually get pretty good. But there is this kind of like idea that's like, like, well, okay, so these are like the precursors to the Stormtroopers. And, Darth Vader is kind of like he's not Space Hitler, but
not yet anyway.
The Emperor is kind of Space Hitler. Darth Vader is kind of like Space Hermann Goering or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what is this like? Clone Wars? Is that like watching like, Hitler High School or something, like Nazi babies or something?
Yeah. I mean, once Lucas with the prequels did the thing where like, well, the Republic is fighting the Separatists and the Separatists are bad. Like that got all muddled.
Yeah.
So these proto Stormtroopers are good.
Yeah, I mean,
but then they become bad. That was never. But even before that, I think, when that first movie came out, A New Hope. I mean, it was such a huge thing, and people, were making their own costumes, and everyone wanted to dress up like Princess Leia or Luke Skywalker or whatever. But then people were also dressing up like Darth Vader, which I get. He's a very recognizable character. And, he's cool and he can, kill people just by bringing his fingers together or whatever.
Right.
But, then people were also dressing up as stormtroopers, which, again, I sort of understand because it's a big they're recognizable images. But it's like, I don't understand why kids would think they're cool or that, oh, wow, you're dressing up as these enforcers of this evil empire. Like,
it's kind of like the number one like fan generated like charity movement that's connected to Star Wars is the 501st, and I mean they do incredible things.
Yeah,
for kids and stuff, which is I think that's what it is, but it is kind of like this weird thing. It's become. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can really go back. It's just for me, I kind of just get a giggle out of it. It's like I was in I was in Ireland back in January, and I'm like walking, not far from the River Liffey that runs right through Dublin. And all of a sudden, I just on a street corner, I just see a dude in a stormtrooper armor, and it's just like, what the heck is going on here? It's like it's the one guy in Ireland that likes Star Wars. I mean, little did I know, it's like I was like 10 feet from some comic book store where there's another 10 dudes dressed up in their Star Wars regalia. And there's there's tons of comic book stores. They're big Star Wars fans in Ireland. And actually, I think they filmed some of the new movie in Ireland. They had just finished when we were
really?
Or something like that. Yeah, they had said somewhere out on the West Coast or something. So there's supposedly there's some of it was filmed in Ireland. But I don't know. I guess I'm never going to feel satisfied about how I'm supposed to, be excited about literal stormtroopers. But, I guess time goes and kids don't know what that they don't know their history.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, the other thing about this May the 4th business is it's become a marketing thing, but it's also now a weird way for companies to try to seem like they're hip and cool. Because on Twitter, of course, everyone now is sort of mocking companies for saying like Bay or whatever. But it's also so my fiance works at a hospital, and she was telling me that today on like her company started off an email that was about like HR violations or how to avoid HR violations, but they started out with May the 4th be with you. Now here's a list of how to avoid all of these violations that get our company in trouble. And it was unrelated. It was completely unrelated, but it was just a way for them to see like, oh, hey, we're jumping on this thing that doesn't this make us seem like we're not a corporation and we like Star Wars too. We're just like you people, maybe. So it's like you said, it started out as just this kind of organic, fans were like, oh, hey, this sounds like that line from the movie, but now it's become this weird corporate business.
And did they say what the appropriate response to May the 4th be with you? Are you supposed to say "and also with you" or something?
No, I mean that's what I've always heard, which is now we're making it like a church joke.
Well,
too,
it's like
but...
I mean, it's like isn't that the? I mean, I have a extensive experience with the Catholic Church, and that was always the part of the of Mass when they'd be like, "Peace be with you," and also with you. So when someone says, "May the Fourth be with you," it's like, "and also with you." It's almost like it happens. Yeah. It's like an autonomic.
Well, because in the movies, whenever that line comes up in the movies, I don't know that anyone actually responds to it. It's just like, "Oh, may the Force be with you." Yeah, and then the other person just kind of leaves, right? Because at least in A New Hope, at the end when Han Solo's like, "Hey, kid." And it's sort of this like reluctant. He's like, I guess I'll say it because it means something to you, but it doesn't mean anything to me. He's like, "Oh, may the Force be with you," and Luke just kind of like looks at him and then walks off.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like so he doesn't respond to it. Yeah, and then the other one I was thinking of is in Jedi. I think does Lando say it or does Han say it to Lando or something? But even then, like I don't think the other person actually says anything back.
I think he
might just say like, "Oh, you too."
I think he just says "good luck."
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I think Akbar is the one that says that. Admiral Akbar says the one. Yeah, I know. It's kind of like that would have been really weird if Lando and like all of a sudden it's like.
Well, because it came to be associated with the rebellion too, and not just the Jedi.
Right, and it's like kind of like that's a weird thing. It's like all of a sudden now it's a religious movement.
Right.
It's like wait, I guess we could go on for hours.
We're invoking church now, and
I'm going off topic. Well, not really, but I'm going off message. But
it's a relaxed conversation.
Did you ever see that book, The Force of Star Wars by Frank Allnut?
No.
So it was actually one of the first fan books that came out in like 78, 77, something like that. And you could always find a copy at what do you call them? Like park fairs, I guess in Europe they call them village fates and stuff like that. Like come down to the park, the thing. And all of a sudden you'd see like this book sitting on like, it's the old thing. It's like the chick tracks. They leave it in places where people pick them up and go, "Hey, what is this?" And there was one I grabbed as a kid. I was so excited and I got it home and it was literally like a 200-page book, like saying this is, Han Solo is doubting Thomas, and and
of course,
John the Baptist is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's just like he anoints Luke, who's Jesus, and you're just like, hey, wait a second, you guys are trying to force feed me religion.
Yeah, it's a way to make it hip for the kids. Is Star Wars? Kids love Star Wars, right?
I think they do.
They won't see through this transparent attempt to make this unrelated thing somehow related to Star Wars.
Although they are right now it's the Avengers week, so I don't know. I guess kids probably have even shorter attention spans than we did when we were kids. So like they probably don't care anything about Star Wars this week. Everything is the Avengers. They won't even be thinking about Star Wars until September, which is when they said the toys are going to start coming out.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, right, there's that new Vanity Fair issue that's coming out. I mean, their target demographic is like kids ages 6 to 12, right?
Yeah, and most of them read Vanity Fair.
Right, all those 8-year-olds just love reading Vanity Fair.
It's like I just think like what? Yeah, it's like Annie Leibovitz. Ooh, that's what Star Wars really needs. Right. Annie Leibovitz. Yeah. I watched that video. And it was just like, Harrison Ford. It's like, I was like, why is Harrison Ford kissing Howard Stern? Like, oh, wait, that's Annie Leibovitz. And she's like taking the photos and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It's nice to see. I mean, I guess this is kind of like our first chance to see things we've already kind of seen, though. I mean, really, except for Adam Driver.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we learned maybe a little bit more with this than we did with all the news coming out of Celebration. Yeah. Right. So the first is we get confirmation that, like you said, Adam Driver is Kylo Ren. He's the bad guy.
So what do you feel? How do you feel about that? What was your first response when you saw Adam Driver's face as Kylo Ren on that shot on the snowy planet with the
he looks really doughy. Is that about it? Like he just kind of looks doughy to me.
Yeah, he looks like my thing was he looks like a dork. It's like he's not scary. It's like he looks like
he's wearing a turtleneck, which doesn't help, or maybe it's just a scarf. I don't know. That never helps. But yeah, I mean, so we got that news
this morning, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. So right. So we learned that. I will say I've never seen him in anything. So
yeah. See, he was on Girls. I think he actually.
Yeah.
I'm only up to season 2 on that. I think he's subsequently left the show, partly to do this.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's the kind of thing like when episode 1 was coming out. I think it was that not Todd Haynes. Who did Velvet Goldmine? Remember that movie, the glam rock?
Yeah, I remember the movie, but I don't remember who.
Maybe it wasn't Todd Haynes. Maybe it is. Anyway, it was, there's a sequence where it's like Christian Bale and Ewan McGregor have sex. And it was kind of like this thing, like, after that movie came out, it's like Batman gets announced with Christian Bale and Obi-Wan Kenobi comes out. And it's like, hey, I've already seen them. I've seen them fucking, and I've seen them fucking each other. So, I don't have anything against that. It's just kind of like, I don't ever think of like Batman or Star Wars being like a sexy anything. And it's kind of like the same thing with Adam Driver. It's like him and Lena Dunham, they have a lot of sex on that show, and he has sex with a lot of women on that show. And it's just like, it's kind of like this weird thing where it's like, you're going to have to put all that stuff aside. Hopefully.
I mean, I saw Ex Machina this weekend.
Okay.
But that's, I didn't see it for this reason, but I think that was the first time I've seen any of the new actors in anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't see 12 Years a Slave. I haven't seen Oscar Isaac in anything before that. I think Donald Gleason, is he in the new Star Wars movies too?
Yeah, Donald Gleason.
He's in Ex Machina.
I don't know who he's
playing. They were both good in Ex Machina. But after I bought tickets, I was like, oh, I think this is the first time I'm actually going to see any of these Star Wars people in anything.
Actually, Adam Driver is in Inside Llewyn Davis as well, I guess. But I've never
is it? Yeah, I never saw that.
So obviously. I guess they act together at some point. I don't know if their characters cross over in this one, but yeah, Donald Gleason. He's like one of those guys that he's been around, but he's the son of Brendan Gleeson, which I didn't really know until I saw them all together on a poster for a play that they were doing when I was in Ireland. But he, the only other thing I know that he was in, he has a pretty small part in that Carl Urban Judge Dredd movie.
Oh,
not a fan.
I never saw it.
Oh, it's really good. But he just plays. He's just kind of like, that's the weird thing about these Star Wars movies. Like, they'll cast somebody and you get all excited, and then you find out it's like, oh my God, Terrence Stamp's going to be in this, and he has like 2 lines.
Yeah,
and he looks very unhappy to be there.
Right.
But I mean,
no, yeah. Who is it? There's an older British actor that's in Episode 7, and I'm blanking on it now. But I was like, kind of excited to see that he was going to be in it.
You're not talking about.
I'm like afraid that
older. You mean you're not talking about Max von Sydow, are you?
Oh yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. Yeah,
he's Swedish.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I had Christopher Lee. I had a picture of Christopher Lee in my head when I was.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, Max von Sydow. I'm excited that he's going to be in it. But yeah, I'm a little worried that he'll end up just being like Christopher Lee.
Yeah,
was in the prequels, and it's like, well, you're here, but.
Yeah,
it could have been anyone.
Exactly. Count Dooku.
Yeah. But so we learned the Kylo Ren stuff, the doughiest Star Wars villain since Jabba, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of which, we also learned that Lupita Nyong'o is going to play a CGI character.
Yeah,
named Maz Jobrani.
Was it Maz?
No, I'm sorry.
What's that? Maz Jobrani?
Yeah, Maz Jobrani.
Maz.
No, I'm
Kanata.
Sorry. What is that?
That's
Maz Kanata. Yes, thank you.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, why do you say? I mean, CG characters are great. I don't have anything against them, but why do you kind of squander this? Well. In some ways, it's like I feel like they're kind of squandering this beautiful woman and putting like dots on her face.
I'm kind of I'm skeptical, but we'll see.
I mean, you don't want to.
Their ability to. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I just didn't know if I'm sure they don't want to exploit this fact. It's like, oh, someone with really dark skin is like, that's exotic and that's an alien. So maybe that's kind of, it's not important. I just think anytime they take like,
no, that's a genuine concern, I think.
Yeah. Considering the prequels had kind of a touchy history with like the way they portrayed or didn't portray people.
Yeah. I mean, it's, so there's that, but it also seems like, so we know she's a pirate, and from the photo she has this castle. She has her own castle full of ruffians or whatever. So it seems like maybe she would play sort of a Jabba-like character, sort of a crime lord, this head of this pirates who.
Oh, so that's
runs
the
a certain sector.
The 4-page shot of all the aliens. That's
it's.
Okay.
I think the caption. Let me pull it up real quick. So yeah, it says, galactic travelers, smugglers, and other assorted riffraff fill the main hall of pirate Vaz Kanata's castle. So
yeah, that one weird thing that looks like the crimson with that looks really cool.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the other interesting thing about this photo too is, like these designs are really great. At least for me, I don't recognize any of these species from the previous movies.
Like nothing.
Which is fine, right? It's a big galaxy. There are all kinds of creatures. But it is a little odd that they wouldn't even put in like, oh, here's a Quarren, or, here's something, or whatever that I'm blanking on, the
Twi'leks.
Kind of goat-like. Yeah, or like the people, the similar kind of ruffians we saw, and they have 6 movies to draw from in that regard.
I do see kind of a C-3PO type robot or cyborg.
On the left
with kind of like, looks like it's like a female chest on it. So maybe that's not a droid
with a gun for a hand.
Yeah, I was going to say I see a gun actually.
Yeah.
So that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting that at least to me, it looks like they're maybe not starting from scratch, but they're going completely new with a lot of these character designs. But having said that, the character designs are all really neat.
Yeah,
and the prosthetics or suits or whatever these people are in, CGI, whatever it is, it looks good it looks good in the photograph at least.
And maybe that's wise, because I mean a lot of the there was a lot of emphasis paid about the first movie is like it was more elegant time, and then they would say like, by the third movie, like, we're already kind of throwing in like the clone troopers that were flying the kind of the precursor to the X-wing. They're wearing a helmet that's kind of similar, and so everything was slowly moving to A New Hope. Whereas, I mean, one of the exciting things about that movie is that it was almost like they kind of just dropped you into this alien world where nothing made sense. It's like, wait a second.
Well, and you had to figure it out along with Luke or whatever.
So, I mean, I guess that's in some ways you can, hopefully maybe that's what they're trying to do, is maybe recreate that kind of like, we're just going to throw you, there's going to be a lot of familiarity because there's really no way.
That sense of imagination and wonder.
Yeah. And it's also, the big thing that they've got to think about is like, multiple viewings, which I don't even know if that's something people do anymore. It's like, I can't imagine the last time I went and saw a movie more than once in the theater was probably Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean, I think they can probably count on at least fans our age or in high school, maybe not below high school, but certainly high school and older, probably doing multiple viewings.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, it's going to be done out. It's going to be out right around Christmas holiday, so nobody will be in school, and so be a lot of families looking for stuff to do. Mm-hmm. So I guess I wasn't worried about it, but I guess I kind of answered my own question. So
let's see, what else have we learned from this piece? Well, we saw so the second teaser trailer had a chrome stormtrooper, and so now we know that's Gwendolyn Christie's character, and we see her. It's a completely chrome uniform. She's playing Captain Phasma. Phasma or Phasma. Captain Pasta. I don't know.
Captain Fanta. Don't you want to? Do you watch Game of Thrones?
No, I don't.
So that's what she's known for. And she plays a character, Brienne of Tarth. And she's kind of I think she's like 6'5" or something like that. She's in the on that show, it's heavily emphasized where she's constantly ridiculed for looking mannish. Because she always wears armor and she wants to be a knight, or not a knight, but she always wants to protect people. So it'd be interesting. Her acting style is kind of like I've seen interviews with her, and she, in some ways she's kind of a tragic character, because it's almost like every time she seems to never succeed at what she's trying to do. She's always trying to protect people and is unable to. So I'll be interested about how they're gonna how different that is. Her character is gonna be, because they haven't shown her without the helmet. I don't know if this is a situation where she's you're not gonna see her face.
Yeah,
maybe.
No, I would hope that they at least let her take off the helmet at some point.
Yeah, it would be kind of
so that she can actually act and not just stand there like Boba Fett.
But if we're already,
because that's the thing, like Boba Fett, everyone loved that character, but he didn't actually do much. He just kind of like nodded at one point and like
that's why
gestured.
That's why they loved him. He wasn't around long enough to screw it up. Everybody could say everything. It's like when you start explaining it, that's when people are kind of like, yeah, what happened is when he was about 10, he saw his dad get his head cut off, and it scarred him for life. It's like,
perhaps.
I don't know. That he's one of those. There's been a lot of talk about on some other podcasts about kind of like, I think I brought this up last time, that they had said that that the whole Boba Fett thing has been a kind of problematic for this new team going forward, because I think there's been some talk, and we did get some questions or comments, stuff they wanted us to talk about today. And and somebody had kind of mentioned this whole thing we'll get to about the second Star Wars anthology movie. That, I knew there was something coming, but I wasn't even aware that a director had been picked.
Oh yeah.
And so I guess the rumor is going...
and now they don't.
Yeah, and now they don't. But as far as story goes, I guess the rumor is that was going to be the Boba Fett movie.
Yeah.
They're doing some kind of spin-off, which will be interesting, because I know that Lawrence Kasdan, who kind of had shepherded that character for Empire, had expressed a lot of disappointment with how he was brought into Attack of the Clones and then subsequently dropped. He's never referred to again, and he just kind of pops up depending on which version of the movie you're watching, either in A New Hope or Empire, and it's.
And Kasdan has a writing credit on Episode 7.
Yeah,
as well. So so they're definitely involving him in the process more now. I knew that a Boba Fett, maybe even a Boba Fett / Han Solo movie was a rumor for a long time. I always thought that was just wishful thinking.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we got a Boba Fett movie? Why don't we have a Boba Fett movie? Here's a character who could do interesting things and doesn't have to be tied to the Skywalker stuff, but I'll sort of believe it when I see it, I guess.
I always worry that kind of stuff is going to fall kind of down like, that nerd wish fulfillment issue where it's like even people like that enjoy this stuff and they're creative-minded people, but it's like they make that mistake of like thinking like, oh, it would be so awesome. I love Alien.
It would be so awesome if they did exactly what I want.
I love Alien and I love Predator. Why don't they put them in one movie? And then they have some of the worst movies of
they should totally have the Predator try to kill an alien.
Yeah. And they should totally, then when that doesn't work, they go, what we should do? We should go back and explain where the alien comes from. And then you get Prometheus. Yeah. And they're like, that wasn't a good idea at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in all of those things, the question is whether the idea is good or, the execution of that idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say in those cases, the idea probably wasn't great, but, the idea of a Boba Fett movie is fine. It just depends on how it will be executed and, like you said, how they have to now untangle all the different briars that they've gotten themselves into.
So going back to some of these pictures, so another one was Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron, which we've got a shot of him kind of coming off of his X-wing, and at the celebration, he already kind of said he's like, "Oh, I'm the best pilot. He's the best
pilot in the galaxy." Or whatever.
Something like that. And it's kind of like a mutual friend of ours had kind of commented that he'd already kind of, just even from the teaser, had gotten a very kind of like, quote, bro feeling from this guy. Like that character, and he had some reservations, and it was like, at first I was like, it's like, how can you? What'd you say?
You had reservations about that?
He did. This friend, our friend.
Oh, the friend.
The friend he kind of was like, what is this? I don't like this. It's like, when this, because he's like in the second teasers, he's like kind of doing the yippee kind of face, which there's some of that in episode 1 actually. It's something like when the whole Naboo starfighter.
Now this is pod racing.
Well, even without that, there's some of those Naboo starfighter guys. They're all like, yeehaw! It's just like they're getting all excited about this kind of thing. And I mean,
you don't want the sort of dry, emotionless Red 2 standing by.
Yeah, let's break off a signal to start your attack.
I am here in this starship. I mean, I guess that's the thing. Like, it sort of makes sense why people would be there, right? Because this is just their job and whatever. But as an audience, we were like, oh, wow, that's so cool. You get to fly this starfighter. We would be excited. So we want to make sure that the characters are excited about that at all times.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said about this kind of idea that, like, these young hotshot Top Gun type guys, if they're kind of if they're going to try to do that version, because, if you always think about the way that what was evoked in the original A New Hope or whatever, is that, okay, so Luke, they all sit in that room and stuff, and then they get in, and then almost all the guys flying are old farts.
Yeah. I wonder if that was. I don't think that was purposeful to like highlight how young Luke was, but yeah, these are clearly guys who've been flying for a while.
Yeah, and you get that kind of like, you remember like every time you watch, any interview with like the original NASA astronauts, those old Navy guys, they are so mellow about stuff. Like they don't. It's like, even if they were up against like when they have. I remember I was listening to like the commentary about something for Apollo 13. They have Jim and Marilyn Lovell, the actual people on there, and just Jim Lovell's kind of like very matter of fact about everything. It's just like there's a whole sequence where Bill Paxton accuses Kevin Bacon of giving him the clap from his relief tube, and then like just Jim Lovell's like, we would never have said that. That would have been very unprofessional of us to have said that. And then like later on, when things get really bad, like when they're coming in, there was like that 7 minutes of silence when they're re-entering the atmosphere, and nobody knew if they were coming back or not. And the real Marilyn Lovell got very emotional watching, the movie version of her getting emotional, and he's just like, honey, it's all right, I'm here. It's just like this thing. Yeah. Like, it's like his whole perspective of almost dying was like, yeah, I almost died. And that's like kind of that kind of, that's what a spaceman was like in 1975 or 76 when these movies were made. And then, 10 years or less go by, and then it's Tom Cruise and the Iceman, and like, we're all on the same side, but I'm going to show you up kind of thing. Right. And I wonder what we're going to get. Or if we're going to get anything. I mean, if like, maybe this is going to be like a 4-minute sequence, and then you're never going to see another pilot again, except for this Poe Dameron guy.
Yeah.
But
it's reminiscent of that old Simpsons episode where Homer goes into space. But, at the very beginning, the whole reason they send Homer to space is because everyone is tuning out the real space launches because they're boring. And, in that early one, they talk about who the astronauts are. And they're like, oh, well, we have a mathematician, a different kind of mathematician, and a statistician. And it's like, yeah, that's who astronauts are. They're like engineers and like maybe a trained pilot, but they're mostly like scientists, and they're going up to do science stuff.
Yeah, there's so much.
Whereas here, right, these pilots are like, oh, they're like fighter pilots instead of oh, here's a guy with like a math degree who is going to go use that degree in zero gravity. But
it goes from like we're pretty sure you're going to come home to, you're probably going to get home. I mean, unless something really crazy happens. Right. So, it kind of requires a different type of intestinal fortitude, I guess. It'll be interesting what we're going to, how much of that we're going to do. It's like, is this a 30-year war we've been, we're going to be coming into? Or not? Yeah,
well, because so going back to the Gwendolyn Christie, the Chrome Trooper character, she's part of Kylo Ren's quote-unquote evil First Order, which I don't know if that means that there's going to be the regular new Stormtroopers that they unveiled and this different faction of Stormtroopers, or if it's just all the same group.
Oh, like internal struggle within the Empire or the former Empire or whatever.
Yeah, but it's like you said, I guess we're just going to have like factional violence for 30-ish years. Or maybe it was calm for a decade or two, and now that Kylo Ren's in charge, he's stirring things up again.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It's like that. I kind of like this. I kind of like about how little I know. I love the free-form speculating. In some ways, I kind of wish I might be repeating this. I kind of wish they never release a full trailer. I kind of wish they just did teasers. I kind of wish they just did that. Like they did like 1, 2, and then they do another one in September. And just, just enough to kind of give us a taste without because like I was saying before, I had rewatched some of the trailers. And it's like there really is a lot of it follows pretty close the plot of the movie, and it's like there's a lot of spoilers in it, and it's kind of like some of it's out of context, like the original Phantom Menace one where Obi-Wan like screams like no, but it's like you could almost go, oh great, somebody really close to him is dying, and it's not going to be Anakin Skywalker because they got 2 more movies with him, so Liam Neeson's in this. And then, of course, at the time when that came out, I was working.
Well, and then I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, at that time I was working in a record store, and so when we got our shipment of Phantom Menace soundtracks and
I was just about to mention
the noble death of Qui-Gon Jinn on the back, and I'm just like,
oh,
son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already speculated, we've already speculated on here that we're probably going to be losing some classic characters in this movie.
Yeah, and there was another rumor / potential spoiler. There was a pretty big one that got posted online this week that I glanced at, but I won't mention it here. But that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Of course, and then again, I went into Jedi thinking that like Luke was going to die at big time, which is funny because I had read something like in Starlog magazine or something that's like something where George Lucas was like, well, every character is going to get a resolution, and it might not be the one you want, but it's going to be all resolved by the end of it. Right. And it's just like, they're gonna kill him, man. They're gonna kill him. Yeah. How can he fight the Emperor and Darth Vader? So, I mean, I think it's almost, the more I think about it, it's almost more, the speculation is almost more fun than the movie could ever possibly be.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's sort of the mark of a good Star Wars anything, right? Is that it sparks your kind of imagination and your speculation about, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. And I think that shows at least that they're on the right track. And, last week, we both talked about how we were kind of not paying attention to Star Wars for a while, and then we started getting back into it, and now we're like in. And with this Vanity Fair stuff dropping and showing up, and reading through at least what's available online so far, it's like, wow, yeah, I'm really back in this, aren't I? They've really gotten me again, and I'm ready to like read more about this and look at these photos and try to figure out, okay, so what kind of character is Maz Kanata or whatever?
Yeah.
Kanata.
Yeah, it's well, at least that's what I wrote. But yeah, I know it's kind of like I bought a they had a new book come out this week or something. I bought an audio book of. I haven't got to it yet, but it's like a Darth Vader backstory Rebels, post Revenge of the Sith thing, and I'm kind of interested what that's going to be. And it's like, well, does that mean I'm going to start reading these things again? Because it's like, really?
Yeah, I've started reading the books again, which we'll talk about another time.
Yeah,
but...
we could probably do a whole episode on books.
But it is sort of interesting reading them now compared to when I was younger. But speaking of speculation, so I want to talk about something because I feel like it's become, people are like, oh, well, this is what it is now. And I still have some skepticism, which is this idea of John Boyega's character being a stormtrooper. Because when the first teaser trailer came out and he he showed up in stormtrooper gear and people were like, oh, wait a minute, well, first of all, there were people who I guess weren't up on the fact that the stormtroopers weren't clones anymore.
Right.
So there was some initial confusion about that, but then there was like, oh, there's a black stormtrooper now. Like, how is that going to work? And then he shows up in the second teaser trailer in stormtrooper gear again in a couple different scenes. And so I think now a lot of people are saying, oh, okay, well, here's a stormtrooper who Daisy Ridley's character meets and like saves from being a stormtrooper. But I am still a little skeptical. He was pretty coy about it.
Yes.
At the celebration panel. He basically didn't answer when he was asked whether he was a stormtrooper or not. He
I know, he looked over at Kathy Kennedy or
he was like,
And just a quick aside, that guy, there's something about him that just like his enthusiasm for this has like shown through. Like sometimes y'all go on his Twitter and like I think some of that stuff kind of like I think he kind of backed off on social media a little bit, probably because he didn't want to do anything, and also because of idiots that freak out. And I don't even want to address that stuff because that shit's ridiculous. But like him, like hearing that he didn't even tell his dad.
Yeah.
And he's like, and his dad is still busting his chops about it because he will not tell him. And it's like these things like you have to, there was an Instagram or Twitter of him having to wash dishes because his dad is like, you don't make with the spoilers and you got to wash the dishes. I mean, obviously it's probably not as true, but I just love that idea that he's sitting there reading his script and they're like, John, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm just doing some stuff for 24, which I never saw that. He's actually in that.
Oh, is he?
But yeah, he's in the one that was set in London. So I guess he's pretty good in it. But I
never watched any 24, so I don't know.
I saw Attack the Block, and that was kind of one of those movies where it's like I don't know, I kind of need to see it again. I wasn't as into it. It was kind of like I don't know, it was kind of weird.
Yeah,
but
the other thing I would say, so he was coy at the celebration panel, but then. The thing, so my fiance and I, we were watching A New Hope last night because she'd never seen any of them before, so we were starting there. But Luke and Han are in stormtrooper uniforms for a long enough time in that movie. You could easily edit a teaser, especially just a teaser trailer. You could easily edit one together for A New Hope that makes it seem like Luke Skywalker starts out as a stormtrooper and then suddenly changes his mind or whatever. It's. Absolutely. I wouldn't necessarily go by just by the visuals we see, unless without any dialogue where someone like addresses him as a stormtrooper or
and especially
otherwise.
With J.J. Abrams, I mean that guy's a Mr. Misdirection. Right. And also, if you want to go deep, it's like one of my favorite Star Wars books, that I didn't get rid of was the Star Wars annotated screenplays.
Yeah.
And in my feeling that even George Lucas, he didn't have a single idea he ever threw away. It's like characters from the first script. There was a Mace Windu. There was there was all these different, a lot of these characters.
The prequels were his opportunity to say like, well, I always wanted to do things and people told me I couldn't do them.
Yes.
So I'm going to do them now.
But if you read the annotated screenplay for Return of the Jedi, the original plot of that movie was Princess Leia and like Wedge in disguise as well. Either he was a stormtrooper and she was a thing, and they had approached at the time the Imperial home planet was called like Had Abaddon. They didn't come up with the concept of Coruscant until
Rondo Hatton.
Yeah, until like those Timothy Zahn books. But it was like this whole idea that instead of them going to the moon of Endor, they were going to try to, I don't know exactly if they were going to blow up the planet or they were going to they were trying to infiltrate the Empire. So the whole idea that double agents and maybe Finn is a double. He's undercover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and what's it called? Rebels has done that this year. They had Ezra infiltrate the Imperial Academy, and pretend to be like a student there, and so it's a
time-honored tradition.
It's within the realm of what Star Wars has done.
Yeah, the whole idea of dressing up
possible.
They even address it in like one of my favorite expanded universe books, which was the Shadows of the Empire, which was like like the sequel to Empire or something like that, where they that's where her whole bounty hunter thing came from.
Right, that was Shadows of the Empire was their attempt to like create this huge multimedia crossover thing, because they had the book and they had a video game.
They even had a soundtrack.
Yeah,
and it was good. It was a good soundtrack. I'm kind of if what's his face doesn't want to do any subsequent movies, I'm kind of hoping that maybe they go for that guy, because I don't think he does a lot of film scores. But
John Williams is not doing the standalone films, and so the guy they got to do Rogue One, I can't remember his name, but he did.
They already have a composer.
Yeah, he did. Grand Budapest Hotel. And he did Fantastic Mr. Fox, and he's done a couple other films. Godzilla. He did the Gareth Edward Godzilla.
It's not the Alexander.
It's Alexander. Yeah, it's something.
Desplat?
Yeah. Is that his name?
No.
No, that's someone else.
There's another. Yeah, they have. These two guys have a similar name, and it's like I always get them confused. I thought Desplat. I think he's a director. Yeah. I guess maybe we should, since we are bringing up these things, maybe we should talk a little bit about the other news that came out this weekend about the second anthology movie, the unnamed movie that I didn't even know.
It is Alexander Desplat.
Okay. Alexander Desplat. So I guess my notes says Josh Trank is in the toilet tank, I guess. This I know. I it's usually for my own.
I wondered what you meant by that, but I think I guess it's going for the rhyme.
I'm like trying to be cute, but I guess he. I guess the official word is that he stepped down from this movie, but rumors abound, and I love a good Hollywood industry. I love industry rumors.
The gossip mill.
I don't care about who's dating who, but if you got a story about some horrible thing that happened on
someone getting fired.
Yeah. I love that stuff. I'm sorry.
What do you have against people with jobs?
Oh, I got everything against people with jobs. But no, just I guess, he said that it was just time for him to take a step back or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the rumor is that he was obviously these rumors probably are supplied by the company that just fired him. That he was the guy was incredible. It would only be his. Would that be his? I guess Fantastic Four is for Fox is what he was working on.
Yeah.
And that movie has been retooled 5 times since filming. And I'm not even remotely interested in that one. It's seeing the trailer, it doesn't look good, but I guess that they were just kind of really disappointed with his work. That would be his second film.
Yeah, well, so the writer of that film, Simon Kinberg, was also writing Rogue One, and Kinberg has some clout within the Lucasfilm organization these days, because he has a hand in Rebels. I know he wrote the pilot, and he has a producer credit on Episode 7, I think. So in a dispute between the person who does a lot of work for them and has a lot of input in this stuff, and the person who doesn't, they went with the first guy, which that's fine for me. I don't, I'll read some of this stuff, but I don't necessarily relish it, but
you're not
that's sort of all I needed to hear was these two people worked on a movie, they didn't get along, so they fired the guy who isn't basically already part of Lucasfilm. It's like, all right, that's fine. That's all I need to know. Well, but yeah, now it seems like we're hearing all these stories about, well,
he smashed up a rented house on the Fantastic Four set.
His dogs, ruined this trailer, and he's very secretive, and like, yeah, well, fine.
I mean, that stuff works if you're just doing. I mean, this whole I always think of I just call it the Disney juggernaut, because really at this point, because they own Marvel and now they own Star Wars and I guess they own Indiana Jones, but really, those two things, those are gonna feed, so many mouths now. It's like it is so much bigger than one person's ego or art, their auteur intentions. It's like I always think about what happened with what's his face? Oh, now I've just blanked on it. Edgar Wright on Ant-Man.
Oh yeah.
And he's a guy who has a very definite style. I mean, I don't think he's pretty much, it's an Edgar Wright movie, and then, that didn't work for Ant-Man, so he got, he left that, and now they've got this other guy who thought maybe he was going to, I'm going to do things my way, and they're just like, yeah, we're dealing with billions of dollars here. It's like, you're going to do it our way. I mean, I don't know, obviously don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard because, Disney was not always, I mean, yeah, they had the heyday of in the 40s, 50s, and 60s of animation, but in the 70s and the 80s, they were were seen as a relic, like a former power. I mean, their own life, they had kind of moved out of animation in those things, and they had tried their own live action stuff, and they'd had some pretty costly flops, like the Black Hole, which was their direct competition to Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, I think they probably don't want to mess around. They don't want to end up in that, now that they've got control of all these proven franchises. I'm sure they don't want to, they don't want to ever risk having a real dinger. I mean, at the worst, if somebody comes out of one of these Marvel or Star Wars movies and go, yeah, it was all right. I mean, that's the worst thing you can say about any of those.
It's fine.
Like people even the movies that have the Marvel movies that people kind of dislike. It's like which I would think out of all of them, I think people dislike the Thor movies the most. I hear more people say saying it was all right. Or I mean, that's about the worst thing you ever hear about it. I mean, because I think they're probably I don't know what their grosses are in compared to other things, but they're not the most popular. Just I think because the story of themselves they're really hard to get people excited about. But if they can't really afford to have anything less than a meh for a Star Wars movie, I think I think even a meh it might be a problem.
Right?
If they got
I guess I'll go see it, but I'm not that into it. That's fine, because that just means at least people are going to go see it. What they don't want is the word of mouth that oh no, this is terrible and you should stay home.
Exactly. And it's kind of and I guess he hadn't even, I mean, obviously it was in pre-production, I assume. It hadn't even been cast or anything.
Yeah, I mean, if the first anthology movie hasn't even started filming, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
the second one.
He was supposed to make an appearance at the celebration, but I guess this stuff has been cooking for a while, and they kind of told him, no, stay home. We're going to think this out. So, I mean, if you were going to, I don't know how much you keep up on directors, but, who do you think might be in the running for this kind of stuff?
Who do I think might be in the running?
Yeah, or is that not something you even follow? Because I
don't even. I mean, I'm going to say I haven't seen a lot of what these people have done before, and that's not because I'm I don't go to the movies. It's just that I just don't get out very often. So current sort of young directors who might be given the keys to this thing. I don't know. Yeah, I know. It's
I'm not really. I put you on the spot there. I'm sorry. I'm not really into it either.
It's fine. It's what's his name? Kinberg has worked with Neil Blomkamp a couple times, the guy who did District 9.
Yeah, but I think he's doing that Alien
Chappie as well. So
Alien. For Fox or something, but I mean, it might be good if he got a good script, because I mean that's the problem. That's the big problem with all Neil Blomkamp's movies, is that they're incredible to look at, But like when people open their mouths, it's just like, what? These stories are stupid.
I have seen District 9, and there came a point in time where I started like fast forwarding. Being like, all right, where is this leading? But he at least has shown an ability to work with Kinberg, and if that's the big deciding factor, that it could go that way. I mean, I know they also wanted Brad Bird to do the first anthology film, and he didn't because that would have meant stopping Tomorrowland, or putting Tomorrowland aside. But that's about to come out. I don't know what he has on his schedule now.
Yeah, did he do that?
That could open back up.
Did he do the fourth Mission Impossible movie? The one
he did one of them. Yeah.
I think he did the Dubai one, which I really enjoyed. So maybe it'd be, one of the guys that they keep talking about. They talked about way back before there had ever even JJ had been announced. That I feel like is Joe Johnston, who's like literally he is a born and bred Star Wars guy from. I think he was a model photographer from back in the day.
He did some concept art for them too for a while. He was for a while. It was Ralph McQuarrie and him.
I mean, he's done big movies. I think he directed Jumanji.
Yeah,
he definitely directed the first Captain America movie, which some people say they don't like. I really thought it was really good, and
I actually just watched it. I thought it was fine.
One of the controversial.
Not all of it was for me, but I thought it was well done.
A lot of people poo-poo the third Jurassic Park movie, but I thought it was, if you didn't think about too much about the other two, I thought it was a perfectly serviceable action film. Sure. It kind of it was evoking of 70s kind of action-y movies. I don't know. I think it would behoove them to maybe take a. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to do it anymore. Who knows? I don't even know.
Yeah, and I don't know since he's done the Captain America stuff. I don't know how. I don't think he did Winter Soldier, did he?
No, it was the Russo brothers who were.
But I don't know. I don't know how tied in he is to all the Avengers stuff from now on.
No, I don't think he's involved in it at all. Maybe it was a bad experience. I don't know. I assume those guys. I assume that when they make these movies, it's just like they nickel and dime people on everything.
Yeah,
it's even Joss Whedon, I guess, has kind of been bristling at the some of the stuff going on in the Marvel universe. It's like I'm not one of those people that think Joss Whedon can do no wrong, which I've been seeing a lot of that today because I guess he quit Twitter today because I haven't seen the Age of Ultron yet. Because to be perfectly honest, ever since this Star Wars stuff has started ramping up, like my interest in all these other movies has like just dropped. Like my excitement, it's like, oh yeah, I'll see it. But I guess he got some kind of heat from people saying that some of the Black Widow stuff was like sexist or something. That she was a lot.
Oh yeah, well, because there were a couple of and the interviews. I heard about the interviews that two of the other
Renner
actors
and Captain America, Chris Evans calling her a slut.
But is the movie itself also a little?
I think she gets in trouble a lot and has to be saved a lot. Which kind of rubs some people the wrong way because he's got such a track record for writing. Well, he gets a lot of credit for writing strong women characters. I don't know if that's always the case. Season 6 of Buffy, wherever I know I'm getting way nerded out. It's like what people who know. It's like whatever. It's the season when Buffy was with Spike. Come on, he doesn't. Yeah. He's not infallible, guys.
I'll pretend that means something to me.
Yeah.
No, it's all right. Again, I'm not like against any of this stuff. I just don't. There's a lot of stuff I just don't.
Oh no. I mean, hey, he did a show. I mean, I'm way out in the weeds here, but he did a show where it was literally just about like cyber hookers or something like that. His Dollhouse show. It was literally about
I remember that
mind-wiped cyber hooker types.
I remember that. Yeah.
And people were like, I had friends that identify themselves as vehement feminists saying, no, we just got to trust in Joss, and I'm like, come on, really?
Yeah.
And by the time they actually resolved that issue. Like nobody was watching this show, so it's just now it's the cyber hooker show. But anyway,
it does bring up an interesting issue. He said, transitioning to the next thing.
Thank you.
Well, now that we have J.J. Abrams doing episode 7, Rian Johnson on episode 8. We have Gareth Edwards on Rogue One, and now they're looking for some other director. Right? There's not probably going to be kind of like an in-house identifiable visual style for Star Wars, the same way there was when George Lucas was either directing or hiring his old film school professor to direct,
or hiring a cipher like in Richard Marquand.
Right. And even then, Lucas was like on set essentially directing. He just didn't want to have to answer a lot of questions.
We'd quit the union, I guess, is what happened.
Yeah. So, we had 6 films where there was more or less an identifiable style. We'll touch on it. We'll get back to that. But, where you have, the camera and then most of the movement is sort of in camera, or, it's done through editing. And so now we're getting this series of different directors who may all have different visual styles. And so it'll be interesting to see, because this is a couple of weeks ago now, or maybe just a week. There was an article or a couple articles at different places talking about J.J. Abrams' visual style and how different it would be from Lucas. So there are a couple things, and you can see these evidence of these in the teaser trailers too. So things like snap zoom. These are terms that I got from these articles. I don't actually know a ton about how these things work. But snap zoom. So in the second teaser trailer where the TIE fighter's chasing the Millennium Falcon into the remnants of the Star Destroyer, and then the camera suddenly zooms in to where the TIE fighter is and gets close up that way. So that's sort of a new thing, although not entirely. Because
I was going to say the clone battle, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, the Clone Wars use that. But with Lucas, so the prequels are exceedingly well documented on video, and there are all these webisodes and featurettes on YouTube and things. So in one of them, they were talking about sort of the pre-visualization process for that movie, and the Clone War, or the battle that represented the Clone Wars, Lucas essentially just like wrote on a piece of paper, and then all hell breaks loose. And then he handed it to people and said, like, all right, figure this out. So the ILM and the storyboard people, I don't even think they storyboarded it. Now I'm remembering this video, but they just basically went straight to the animation, the animatic for it. And so Lucas, all he said was like, yeah, that looks good, or maybe tweak this or that. But the visual style of the battle in the Clone Wars Lucas had almost nothing to do with that. And so some of the stuff that J.J. Abrams does, it's reminiscent of that. But again, it's not necessarily Lucas. It's similar to what's been in a Star Wars movie, but it's different from what Lucas would do in that situation. And of course, like,
and those guys that were, and he's using, I assume he's using ILM. I know that they farm out a lot of these movies. It's like they send one shot to one company, but
right.
I assume that they're using.
I believe so.
Didn't they do a lot of the Star Trek stuff too?
Probably.
That's the thing. It's like, I say what you want about the stories about his Star Treks, but the special effects were top notch. So
yeah,
but yeah, I know. I've seen some of these videos where they show,
well, and lens flare. Lens flare is the big one.
They show like they just add all this artificial lens flare to the teaser or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a little bit of lens flare in some of the original movies and stuff, because they're always crossing over vistas and things like that. But yeah, I mean, he really overdid it. There's a whole featurette on the originals. Well, his Star Trek Blu-ray, where he just talks about how, like, yeah, more lens flare. And it was just like, he was just like obsessed with it. And then he even kind of admitted, like, afterwards, I think there was too much lens flare in that movie. And it's just like, and it's one of those things where I guess they actually had to fix some of it for Into Darkness or whatever. They actually had to take some out because it was like they had to digitally remove lens flare.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
So, yeah. I mean, I guess we could talk. I know we're probably close to wrapping up, but we could talk a little bit about, just to finish up sort of our conversation from the last couple episodes about the teaser trailers and the designs and some of the new stuff. So going back to the Gwendolyn Christie character, the Captain Phasma, being in all chrome, I thought it was similar to the new lightsaber design that was in the two teaser trailers, which there was some controversy because now there's basically like a laser hilt on this lightsaber now, and people were like, "Oh, I don't like it," or "I think it's great." I don't particularly care about whether I like it more or less. It's just different to me. But I will say that what interests me about it is in the original trilogy, less so than in the prequels, but definitely in the original trilogy, Lucas drew so much from Japanese film and mostly Kurosawa and samurais as the inspiration for sort of the style of what the Jedi were wearing. With Obi-Wan Kenobi, especially in A New Hope, he has, the brown robe with the kind of long sleeves that he can put his hands into, and that's very reminiscent of what the samurai in Kurosawa's film, the samurai style of dress that were all the Kurosawa films, and the lightsabers as well were sort of inspired by the samurai swords and that style of fighting even. But now that we get this hilt on the lightsaber, I wonder if it's a shift more towards being inspired by either Arthurian legends specifically, or just sort of an English or even British style more generally. And looking at this new Chrome Trooper, it looks like a suit of armor, a suit of old British knight armor. Yeah. So I'll be curious to see if that's sort of the trigger for the inspiration for.
Yeah, I think you're kind of onto something with that, because it is that kind of, like, if you look at some of this, like, some of the teaser type images. Yes, there's been a lot of that of the desert planet, but briefly it's like there's really lush forests and snow and kind of more of that European kind of look, which I think it kind of complements that kind. It evokes that, like you said, that Arthurian kind of idea of dark colors and lots of blacks and
and wasn't there? I should remember this, but wasn't there? It must have been the first teaser trailer, but there was some brief glimpse of like a group of hooded figures meeting in the woods in the dark or whatever, or it was something like that that made it seem very kind of druidic, maybe is the word I'm looking for.
No, I think you're thinking of the second one. We're talking about the brief shot where Kylo Ren throws his face towards the camera. I mean, I know that the Kylo Ren, when he does his sword, he's in kind of a forest and there's nobody else.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
But it's kind of, it'll be interesting. I just went to that there's a touring costume exhibit for Star Wars, and it's here in Seattle until September. And
yeah, I've heard it's really good.
It's pretty good. I mean, I could have done a little bit more with the presentation, because I kind of left a little confused as whether I was looking at screen-worn costumes or reproductions. I mean, some of the stuff from the prequels had to have been screen-worn because they were so ornate. I can't imagine them being worth it for them to recreate these for just a touring thing. But it was kind of, there wasn't a lot of great information. That was the downside. But, they had like Luke's original, what I assume is his original costume from Jedi, which really kind of puts in mind, if you look at Kylo Ren, that shot, it's like there's a lot of that kind of, layers of black upon black.
Yeah.
And I think he's wearing high boots. I mean, except that I don't know what they call it. He's kind of got it's almost like a skirt type around that, is kind of
yeah, the fabric is definitely different.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is, now that you say that, it is very reminiscent of Luke kind of Return of the Jedi
Yeah, I mean,
costume. What he wears
originally
the whole time.
they had, I guess, the whole point of them having it like that was to try to get people to like think, oh, is Luke gone to the dark side or something like? It's like, oh, he's wearing black, much like the way Anakin starts wearing very dark browns and blacks in the third movie. You know, when it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm no expert at costumes, but the whole idea of of seeing that they had some images of Kylo Ren's the hilt of his lightsaber. And it's definitely, some people had kind of said, like, it looks like, the hilt, or I guess, is it the guard? The guard with the...
No, I don't know.
It's like, it looks like it's outgassing something. Like, it's actually, it's not to protect the hand. It's literally because they don't know how to make a Sith lightsaber, so this is the closest he could get. He had to have an exhaust on it or something like that.
I guess.
I know. But if you look at what they had some images at Celebration, and it does definitely look like somebody had like thrown it together out of parts. Which,
well, I mean, that's sort of the point, right? They make their own lightsabers, and in Rebels, Ezra, the lightsaber he makes, it's a combination. It basically looks like a staple gun, and it's a combination lightsaber and a little shooter.
Hey, anything that's not a slingshot.
Yeah,
they had those.
He had that in the beginning.
It took me a while to get back to that show because that slingshot thing had kind of bugged me so much. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I know that they say that they're have been theorizing that they're kind of gone prop wise. They've gone back to the Graflex flash guns for lightsabers that they did in the original movies, and that they had, because back for the prequels they were all what do they call them? They're made out of resin. And then they would just paint them because they go through so many of them, or whatever. And they did kind of tend to they looked a lot less fun and like ornate. When I was a kid, you see Luke's saber, like, what is that? And years ago,
they look less foreign.
They kind of look like.
Which now I can't remember what toy company it is, but there's some like make your own lightsaber now, it's all of these ridiculous like additions and parts where you can have one that even looks like brass knuckles, except it's like lightsabers.
Oh wow!
It's really ridiculous.
That's awful.
I mean, that kids like lightsabers. So
yeah, my brother-in-law bought me a thing years ago. It's like they call it Masterworks, and it's those light up lightsabers that are like they use like double size battery, have sound effects and everything. And the cool thing about the one he got me is that if you take it apart, you can take apart all the accoutrements, and you can make Darth Vader's, and you can make Obi-Wan's because they have all the parts, and you just add them on, and then you switch a switch, and it's blue, red, and green. So you can you can make Luke's, you can make Darth's. Yeah, it's and I've actually years ago I was at a Goodwill and I came across a Graflex light gun, and I bought one, thinking like, oh, I'm going to make one of these, which is like such a, pain in the butt. But there really is something like when you hold one, it's like, wow, this really does. Like, I had like, there was a place where I went through my toolbox and I found like a screw that had a rounded top, and I like inserted it into a rubber gasket where the wire had come in. All of a sudden it's like, it's kind of like, I think I ended up ruining it because I was like, I read up on it like, they used double-sided aluminum tape to make this, and I like put it on and it looked terrible, and then it got dropped, and then a chunk of the black came off of it, and it's like, oh. But it's like, if you really look at, I guess a friend of mine that was into photography was like saying that, camera collectors hate Star Wars fans because they people that are into photography, they collect that stuff, and they want to keep it as is. And the like lenses. All these hobbyist nerds, they buy these things and then they just take the flash right off of it, and they're just using they're essentially using the part that the batteries went in, and everything else goes in the trash.
Yeah.
Okay, well, looks like we're getting pretty close to the end, I think.
Yeah.
There was a couple, I had said that we didn't get any suggestions or comments, but we did get some at the last minute. And it just just a couple listeners. Brandon from Illinois, he wants an episode where we just talk about Harrison Ford's earring.
So this would be the Star Wars anthology. What do you want?
No. This was just a suggestion of the show.
Oh,
that we should just do an episode about Harrison Ford's earring.
I mean, I'm sure we could fill up 90 minutes of that.
Yeah, and also we actually did
at least 60.
And we got the only one we got like an anthology submission was that Andrew from the SF Barcast. He said he wanted an 8 to 12 episode show about the life on planet Alderaan. And I guess at the end of the thing, the Death Star shows up and blows it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting because I know in the comic books, the recent ones, they're starting to deal with like, okay, well, what happened to all the people, all the Alderanians? And I guess there were some old EU books that did this too, but the people from Alderaan who were off planet when it got destroyed, like what happens to them? But no one's, I don't think, ever really dealt with what the planet was like beforehand.
You just see one brief shot at the end of the Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, well, and it's because Leia in A New Hope says, "Oh, our planet is peaceful. We have no weapons." But then earlier than that, clearly, Bail Organa had guards, and there were guns on that planet at some point. So maybe a show about.
Jimmy Smith would do it. I mean, that guy loves being on television. Yeah. He's been in like Dexter and the Sons of Anarchy.
And I was thinking about this the other day. I wonder if he is eventually going to be in Rogue One, because if it's about getting the Death Star plans, and if the Organa family was heavily involved in that and in the rebellion,
that would be.
It seems logical to me that Jimmy Smits would be in that movie
because he was criminally underused in those movies.
Oh yeah, he had nothing to do. He was just happy to be in a Star Wars movie, I think, is why he was there.
Well, they put all those people in those movies in those strange, like, Renaissance costumes.
Right.
Just like they don't even look comfortable. Because I was watching Revenge of the Sith recently, and there's like that whole thing where he essentially watches some kid get gunned down, and just like his first instinct is to get in his car and take off. It's like he doesn't even like check on him. I mean, it's like and of course he doesn't. And that's another one of those trailer moments where he yells out for him, much like the way Obi-Wan yells out for Qui-Gon. When I saw it, I mean, obviously in Episode 1 that was a pivotal scene, but in the trailer for Revenge of the Sith, you're thinking, "Oh my God, what is this going to be?
Something happened."
No, it's just George Lucas's kid's cameo, and he gets shot.
Right.
So that was our two listener feedback comments or whatever. So I think we
thanks for writing.
Yeah, the only other things that we can come back to this, but I did see there was something about JJ and his adherence to the new old way of doing things.
Oh, the practical effects stuff.
Yeah, that he had kind of poo-pooed. They had done some kind of character that had shot up out of the sand. It was like a Jawa.
It was a Jawa.
Yeah.
So there will be Jawas in this movie, or at least odd singular Jawa.
And then it didn't look. They said it looked weird, and that like, we can fix it in post. And JJ's like, no, we're gonna leave it. It's gonna.
Well, because they buried it in the sand. It was basically, he described it like a seesaw. They put like a plank of wood in the sand, and they put the Jawa on one end, and then someone stepped on the other end, and the Jawa pops out of the sand. Yeah. And ILM was like, we can make that look better. And J.J. Abrams was like, no, why would we want to do that? I like the kind of handmade way it looks, which and on one level, sort of like, yeah, but we'll see. Maybe it does look bad. But on the other hand, I kind of appreciate that sort of. And so here you go. You were asking me earlier, who would I want to direct a movie? If we're talking about handmade practical effects, what about Michel Gondry? Right? Yeah. We can just have an entire Star Wars universe constructed out of cardboard. Just like people pulling strings to get wheels to move and things like that.
That's actually a horrifying idea. Now that I'm going to poop. I'm not going to fund that. I'm not.
No,
that's a failed pitch.
What about let's go the other way. What about Jodorowsky?
Oh,
right. He's probably looking. He's probably looking for a project.
I need $50 trillion.
Yeah.
And then I hire a chef. Makes you your favorite food.
He can write a 1,000-page book
every day
with all of the designs and
then Han Solo have sex with the Wookiee. I've never seen the original Star Wars. I assume they are lovers. That's what I love about that
if they're not, there should be.
That Hodorowski documentary. It's like he kind of admitted he never read Dune.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read his script,
liked the idea of it.
If you ever read the script, it's like, oh my God. It's like, have you ever read his original treatment?
No, I didn't.
It's basically Ilea, the child born of the Reverend Mother, born by Paul's mother.
Right.
She's actually she's a product of incest between Paul and his mother.
Yeah,
and that's why she's called an abomination and stuff. It's like, it's some. He
was trying to change. He was trying to expand people's consciousness.
Exactly. Although,
Robert, why can't you see that?
I guess I could go for a spin-off movie, like Hodorowski's Jabba the Hutt movie.
Yeah, that would be. Oh, how about this? How about John Waters' Jabba the Hutt movie? You want to talk about questionable material?
Only if Edith the Egg Lady were still alive. It's like,
yeah, that's true.
Oh, Jabba,
a lot of his
you're gonna meet a nice Rhodian. You should go and do that. We could have. I just like eating frogs. I have frog salad and frog desserts and everything.
I honestly could actually go for a John Waters, like maybe even a remake of the original one, where it's just like at the end of it, it's like, I don't know, Luke picks up a turd off the ground and eats it at the end of he drops.
Yeah, the Return of the Jedi, the Leia, slave girl outfit. He would put that on probably anyone.
He'd probably put that on like some 400-pound dude.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be good. I would actually go for that.
I would absolutely go for that.
And I saw you had this note of stuff that you had said. Ken Burns would be an idea, but the funny.
Well, sure, that's it.
What does he ever do? Well, you mean so it'd be like a documentary about what had happened with absolutely no moving images, because it's like, oh, this took place so long ago in a galaxy far, far away. We just have these pictures.
Letters from home, letters from the Clone War home to families.
My dearest Dash Rendar. Today was the First Order's worst day. I believe that these strong young stormtroopers are definitely fighting for the right way. I long to run my hand through your long tentacles that run off the back of your head.
Yeah. For my job, I had to watch, recently I watched this PBS documentary he did on Congress. And the whole thing's probably an hour and a half long. At least 20 minutes of that is just shots of the Capitol dome and of the interior thing, which is very nice. And the ceilings in the U.S. Capitol are very nice, but I don't need 20 minutes of just shots of that. So my thought there was, Lucas is, he's always trying to, or at least he was for a period, trying to reach towards abstraction through editing and sound and images. So there you go. So Ken Burns can do the same thing, just abstract shots of the interior of all of these buildings and spaceships interspliced with interviews with Bail Organa talking about what the Senate used to be like and what it's like today. These kids don't know.
Now, if I were predisposed to doing fan films, that'd actually be a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's doable.
Oh man, I tell you, that reminds me that years ago when the DVDs first came out and the Empire of Dreams documentary was coming with it, so I was all excited, and I misheard that somebody had said this a documentary named Kevin Burns, who was no relation, and I thought that they had hired Ken Burns.
Right.
To do a documentary about Star Wars, and I was all excited. And I'm like, wait a second. And when I got it, I was like, this isn't
Ken Burns. This is Kevin. And then you realize that you dodged a bullet.
Exactly. It'd be like the first documentary about Star Wars that I actually slept through.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough material out there now about how all of these movies were made. I think a 9-hour film version would be a little too much.
Yes. I still haven't even cracked those J.W. Rinsler books from the original trilogy that I bought on Kindle.
I've read A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and they're both very good, but they're not something that I'll probably just keep reading over and over just because they're so big and there's so much in there.
Right.
But I do want to check out the Return of the Jedi one soon.
Yes. So I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. We got a good long thing. We got plenty of stuff to we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, this will hopefully be up on the 4th for you guys. I don't even know exactly when our next show is, but we have to schedule that, so probably sooner rather than later. So I will just thank you for spending this time with us, and have a happy 4th. And I have been Robert Zachary.
I am still John Llewellyn.
And you have been listening to Talking Bird, the special edition. And I just realized that we totally forgot to say, guys, Eagleheart season 1 through 3 on Hulu right now.
Oh, yeah.
Check it out.
Go watch it. It was a great show.
It's like if you've gone through this, then you are a true fan. And if you need something to be a true fan of, be a true fan of Eagleheart and watch that show. I think it's totally a good idea. Like Star Wars fans can be Eagleheart fans. And then maybe we'll have a crossover comic in a few years.
Yeah.
Darth Monsanto.
Sure.
Our unofficial mascot is Darth Monsanto.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Yum nub, eat up a yum nub. I told me chicken, the new duckling, oh ha, yawa. Jump yawa. I told me chicken, a new duckling, oh ha. Coachy talk to ya.